extrinsic reward, we call it, meaning the reward is external, then our brain tends to be less and less motivated to do the effort part to get there. You need to psych yourself up more in the beginning, after over time, and that reward at the end has to get greater and greater and greater. And this is where dudes, they find themselves, they start learning pickup and dating, they start to get some successes, they start to get good at it, and then what happens is they get bored with it. But the topic I wanted to address today is something that I find happens with a lot of guys when they're asking for my advice and help in the dating market, that they just aren't enjoying the process of dating, and I hear that complaint a lot, even guys in from men and women actually, that don't, that even ones that haven't consulted with me, it's like they are not really liking that process. The process of going through apps or approaching isn't really that pleasurable to them. It's kind of a lot of anxiety. They feel like it's a lot of, I hear, oh, it's a waste of my time, and then they go on dates with girls. And if the girl doesn't turn out to be that girl that is somebody that they're going to want to sleep with, or that wants to sleep with them, or that girl that might be relationship material, then they're mad about that. And they feel like they wasted their time. And it's just like, and that's where this dating market stuff seems like it's really hard, right? Because people just aren't enjoying it. And so I kind of wanted to address that today, because the thing is, and this goes to anything that you're doing really, is you want to be able to train your system to reward the effort, even if it's something you don't want to do. All right. Now, I want to show you a quick model here. Sharing the screen. And yep, let's do that. Okay, cool. So we are sharing the screen. Let's look at this little diagram here real quick. All right, so this is a diagram that was created to, I forgot the guy's name that created it. It's well researched in psychology. A lot of people doing research in psychology and neurology on how to get into a flow state. Okay, so a flow state is when you're in that focused, happy state and you're just plugging along, doing something, some activity. You're enjoying it and you're doing it very efficiently. Because of that enjoyment and because of, just being in that zone, so to speak, it's about the most efficient and effective way to operate. So people are always like, how do I get in this state? Well, there's observations from the psychological and neurological community. You're looking at this little chart here to describe what's going on with our brains and how we're wired. So if something is low challenge, all right, the challenge level's low and your skill level's low with it as well, there isn't really that much motivation to do that thing at all, right? We have some things in our lives that we have to do, but we might procrastinate on those things. We're just not that interested because it's not very challenging to us, and it doesn't require much to do, right? We might just do it without thinking about it, but we're very apathetic about it. Now, if the challenge is still low and, it's about moderate skill level, we'll do it. We have to focus on it, but it's not very challenging. And so that's, boring, right? So maybe going through a spreadsheet, for example, could be boring because it doesn't, you have to pay attention to what you're doing. But so it's a moderate skill level because you have to be attentive, but it's not very challenging, right? You're just whatever, going through a spreadsheet, let's say, and logging or transferring numbers or whatever, it's just not a huge challenging activity. So that can be pretty boring. Well, let's look at dating though. Dating, I would say meeting new people, making that connection on a social level and getting them to basically desire you. I'll put that on the higher level of challenge. All right. Now, when your skill level gets high, then that challenge, it's less challenging to you. But overall, generally speaking, for most people have a struggle with it, right? And can be very challenging. And so I'd put that at the higher level. Well, if you're not good at it, If you're not really particularly good at gaming and, you know, getting women, there's going to be a lot of anxiety there. That's where the approach anxiety happens. That's where the anxiety of rejection, what do I say next, and all that kind of stuff happens. And so if you have an anxiety about going into dates or whatever, and you might not describe it as anxiety or fear, but just like a discomfort, you know what I mean? That's going to be not very motivating at all, right? You're not going to want to be on these dates. And then during the dates, you're just gonna, your stress level is gonna be up. And so you're not really enjoying the process there, right? Now, let's say you start to get kind of good at it, right? You start to learn some game, you start to get some successes, you get some hits along with your rejections and failures, but the rejections and failures aren't that impacting on you anymore. You get in this aroused state now. And aroused, I don't mean sexual arousal, I mean mental arousal, where you kind of have to be on it. You're attentive, right? It's not quite enjoyable yet. It's just sort of a challenge. But the challenge transfers from a bad challenge that's stressful and that makes you want to get away from it, to kind of a good challenge at this point. Now it's like, okay, I want to improve, at least kind of get this thing to happen here, right? Whatever that thing is. You're out with this chick. I want to get this chick to the next stage. And so that you're now in an arousal state there. And that's a bit more motivating and a bit better, at least a little bit more, significantly more enjoyable than anxiety. Now, when you get really good at it and the chick's, fun to be around and all that stuff, now you're in a flow state, right? So now you're just like, and assuming too that the chick is somebody that you're attracted to, which would make her a higher challenge. Obviously, someone who's less attractive, you don't care about those outcomes. Those are going to be, you're going to perceive those as lower challenges because you don't care about the outcome if she's not that attractive and you're not attracted to her. But if you are attracted to her, and that puts you, in a flow state when you have a high level of skill with being able to seduce a woman, right? Or seduce and get her to desire you. And so if your skill level is high, she's a challenge. Even if you're getting kind of blown out, you can sort of, or it's not working, you can get into this, you might move back into the arousal state if it gets to be more of a challenge because of her attraction level or whatever. But for the most part, you can get in this flow state where you're pretty happy about it and enjoying that dating process. So this here takes a bunch of skill. Getting skilled in the dating process is going to make you enjoy it. But what do we do now until then? What do we do until we develop those skills? Where's the deficiency, right? And even sometimes when guys do develop the skills, they still find themselves not quite enjoying that process. So you got to look at why that might be. And so the reason for that is because of where their focus is. If you're focused on, that's what I talk about being outcome independent a lot. If your focus is on the outcome and you deem success or failure of this event based on that outcome, that is not going to reward the effort you're putting in to get to the outcome. And so we find when we're talking about effort, and this is the way our brain operates, if we have to psych ourselves up to do something or start something, and then at the end, we're looking for that reward, and that reward has to be like this big thing, right? A extrinsic reward, we call it, meaning the reward is external. Then our brain tends to be less and less motivated to do the effort part to get there. You need to psych yourself up more in the beginning, over time, and that reward at the end has to get greater and greater and greater. And this is where dudes, they find themselves, they start learning pickup and dating, they start to get some successes, they start to get good at it, and then what happens is they get bored with it. And they start like nexting girls left and right and just like, this is stupid, this is a waste of my time. And they start to like lose interest, lose enjoyment, and lose opportunities on top of it. It's not like they got the chick of their dreams or several chicks of their dreams and like they're good. It's they've gotten the skill, they can get the girls, but they don't keep them. They don't, it's just not like they just are having trouble finding that reward. Well, the reason why is because that reward at the end, getting that girl's number at first when you were bad at it was like, oh, that's awesome. Once you get a bunch of numbers, well, now you don't care about that anymore. The reward has to be greater. All right. And well, they've had a few women sleep with them. They've had some good looking women. Well, now if the chick's not like this 10 who's LTR material and all this awesome stuff, it's like they're not motivated. And in fact, they get frustrated with it. They get, annoyed with it. If she doesn't turn out to be like perfect after date 1 or 2, then the reward's no longer high enough for them. And this is how guys sort of filter out of the dating market and get apathetic with the dating market. It turns into apathy. They get bored. And that's a problem. I mean, not a problem if you have the life you want with women. Well, where it's a problem is where you don't have the life you want with women. And that's what I usually find. They're not like living the life that they would want with women. They're just now bored. And no, it's not a case of I suck with women, so I'm going to use that, make my necessity a virtue and say, oh, I'm just not attracted to any of them. We see that too, of course, right? But that's not what I'm talking about here. A lot of times these guys are higher, kind of decent, high value. They got value. They're decent looking. They've had successes. They've had hot women. They know the process, and they're just simply bored with it. They don't know what to do. Well, that's because, again, you've been rewarding yourself extrinsically. You used to get you have to, okay, got to go approach this chick. You kind of psych yourself up a little bit. I'm going to be alpha. And then, boom, you get out there, you do it, and then get her phone number, and that's the reward. That's the extrinsic value, rewards that are happening, which means that the effort in the center of it becomes more and more taxing to put in. You become less motivated unless those rewards, those extrinsic rewards go up, that beginning and particularly that end reward, as that's not continuing to go up, then you can no longer appreciate just meeting up with a halfway decent chick and having a nice drink or two and calling it an evening. That's no longer enjoyable. If she's not, throwing herself at you, or she's not a 10.5 and everyone wants to bang her and you get lots of attention from having her around or any of that stuff, it's like, it's no longer cool anymore. It's no longer worth it to you. And again, hey man, that's fine if that's how, if that suits you, but usually it doesn't. Usually they don't have the life that they want with women. They know they need to go out there and date women to get it, but the motivation's now gone.